Hello there. Dr. Bill Crawford here, psychologist, speaker, author of 8 books, host of 2 PBS specials, here again to bring you another tip on how to help you create the life you want. Specifically, how to use my life from the top of the mind philosophy to bring more clarity, confidence, creativity into everything you do. Today, I want to talk about the subject, the topic, the challenge of when helping doesn't help. I don't know, kind of we've all been there, haven't we? Kind of trying to give advice to someone only to have that advice kind of rebuffed or rejected or even criticized us for implying that somehow we knew enough to help them. And of course, then we get frustrated or resentful and try to kind of double down on the advice, and they double down on their resistance, and it just doesn't work. So what I want to do is bring you some new information about why that is happening and some specific tools for changing that whole dynamic of resistance and insistence. So why it doesn't happen, for those of you who follow my life from the top of the mind, you kind of have an idea of why that doesn't happen. Remember, we got these 3 parts of the brain: brainstem, limbic system, neocortex. Lower brain is the fight or flight part of the brain. Upper 80% of the brain, the neocortex, what I call the top of the mind. This is where we have access to our best interpersonal skills, problem-solving skills, clarity, confidence, creativity, compassion, etc. Middle brain is the limbic system. This is the scanner, processor, router part of the brain. And for as long as we've been on the planet, this part of the brain has tried to keep us safe by keeping us worried or anxious or angry or resistant or on guard in some ways. And unfortunately, it's not very smart, and it's working with old software. So it has a tendency to interpret almost anything it perceives as negative as dangerous and throws us into the lower 20% of the brain that's designed to deal with danger in that fight or flight resistance component. So how does this apply to advice? Well, here's the deal. When someone is struggling with some particular issue, maybe it's addiction, maybe it's low self-esteem, maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's a weight issue, whatever, they hear advice as criticism. Or maybe more specifically, their middle brain hears our advice as criticism. And hey, this is not the first time they've understood that they have this problem. And so for a long time, they have been kind of struggling with this fear that there's something wrong with them, that they're not as good as other people, that this anxiety or this learning disability or this depression or this weight or this addiction is really kind of maybe something that is wrong with them, some sort of personal failure on their part. So when we point it out with well-intentioned advice, their middle brain interprets that as criticism. And because they've been struggling with this for a long time, it engages old neural pathways that are pretty common and pretty easy to go down to this lower brain. They feel ashamed, or they feel criticized, or they feel that this fear that there's something wrong with them has been kind of uncovered or reinforced. And here they go to the lower brain. So what can we do? Well, number one, we don't want to come to them kind of thinking or pretending or implying that we have all the answers. They've been struggling with this for a long time, and they've had a hard time with it. So when we come and say, hey, here's what you need to do, you just need to do this, this, and this, it comes across as dismissive or demeaning, like, oh yeah, you've just kind of been thinking about this for the last 20 minutes. I've been struggling with this all my life, and supposedly you've got it all figured out. Well, there must be really something wrong with me. You see how that goes into there? So what we want to do is go to them and let them know that we get how hard the struggle is, how hard they've been struggling, how hard change is. That empathizing with their struggle kind of takes away from somehow this is somehow their failure to cope, somehow their inability to make something happen. Now, we can't say that I get it, I totally understand, because we can never totally understand another person's perspective. But we can say, I can only imagine how hard this must be to kind of know this and struggle with this and want to change this and have a hard time doing it. That's got to be really, really hard. That kind of empathy can have them feel like they're not in it alone, that it's not their personal failure. This is pretty much an understanding that a lot of people have. 2, what we want to do is to begin to understand that the part of them that's going to make meaningful change is not this lower brain. It's their upper 80% of the brain. So what we want to do is to begin to reach for their neocortex. Speak about something they've done really well in the past. Do they have a degree? Have they gotten good grades? Are they really good at a certain sport? Are they really good playing video games? Are they really good at something? If so, that's who they are when they're coming from the upper 80% of the brain. And if the getting good at whatever they're good at has been kind of a learning process, we can compliment them on their willingness to go into a situation, learn how to do it, stick with it, get better and better and better until they are successful. Because that's what they're going to need to do in order to do this. We need to also understand that unless they're coming to us for advice, or unless we have some real specific training on how to help people change and through the struggle, we may not, maybe are probably not the best person to support them through this change process. But what we can do, again, is have confidence in their ability to, when it gets bad enough, to reach out for help. Maybe it's a helping professional, maybe it's a 12-step process or program. But what we can say is, I have confidence that whenever this bit gets bad enough, you will reach out for help. I wish I were the person that was able to help you through all this. That's just not my skill set, not my training. But I want you to know I have confidence in you that when it gets bad enough, that that you'll reach out for help. What that does is implants a kind of a question in their mind. Has it got bad enough? How bad does it need to be before they reach out for help? So what we want to do is to make sure we are dealing with them in a way that reaches for their best, that empathizes with their struggle, that gives them the sense of if change is necessary, then it's very possible that a program or a person who's really good at helping people change could be part of the answer. So that way, our advice doesn't come across as we've got the answers and you don't, or we know and you don't, or somehow we're good and you're not. The whole thing, I'm okay, you're okay, instead of I'm okay, but you need serious professional help. That's not the message we want to convey. If we're willing to kind of empathize with what's going on, reach for the best of who they are, compliment them on what they've done in the past in terms of change, and let them know that we have confidence in their ability to reach out for help when it gets bad enough, what we've just done is plant the seed. And who knows, that seed could bloom into a process of them actually getting the kind of help they need to change. But what it does, it takes us out of the position of the advice giver, the one who's telling them what they need to do, and them just reacting to that in a defensive or resistant way. If this is meaningful to you, I encourage you to like the video. I try to post these once a week. If you like it, feel free to subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and iTunes. I post these as many places as possible. If you have comments, let me know. I try to read all the comments. If you have questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to give you my best thoughts on this. Share it with your friends if you feel this is valuable. This is what I get to do. I get to go around the world teaching people my life from the top of the mind philosophy. It's a philosophy that takes into account how does the brain work? And how can we access the best of who we are to make sure we're bringing our best to life so that we're dealing with what we need to change in our life in a way we would recommend to someone we love. If this is something you think your organization, your school, your church would be interested in, I would love to talk with you about that. All you got to do is go to my website, billcrawfordphd.com. Let me know what you're interested in. Happy to talk with you about that. And by the way, for those of you who are concerned about the cost, I have a philosophy called integrity-based pricing, where it basically says, I believe whenever I'm doing a presentation, I'm dealing with people of integrity who probably have a certain amount that they can afford to bring me in. If you'll just get me the maximum you can afford, I will speak at your event for that amount. Hopefully that makes this whole process of connecting with me and me connecting with you just a whole lot easier. So until next time, I try to post these videos once a week. Until next time, here's to you, bringing more clarity, confidence, creativity into everything you do. And I look forward to seeing you in the future.